She was beaten. She was tied up. And now she was left to die slowly, hanging from a tree in the middle of a dark forest. Sarah Bennet's wrists were rubbed raw by thick ropes stretched wide on a heavy tree branch. Another rope pressed into her neck, forcing her to push upward with her shaking arms or choke to death. Her bare feet hung above the ground, toes reaching for something solid to stand on. Blood smeared across her legs, mixed with dirt and sweat. Her knee was swollen with a deep red bruise spreading across the skin. Each breath came out shallow and broken, making a rattling sound. The night was silent except for her crying and the sound of the rope creaking with every movement. But Sarah wasn't alone. In the shadows, leaning against another tree, stood Marcus Kane. Once a respected rancher, now nothing more than a monster. His eyes shined with twisted pleasure. Like a hunter enjoying the slow death of its prey, Marcus lifted a silver flask to his lips and took a long drink. He smiled as Sarah struggled against the ropes, her body shaking hard. "You see, Sarah," he whispered in a calm, chilling voice. "This isn't about killing you quickly. It's about watching you break, piece by piece, until your spirit is gone." He stepped closer, boots crunching on dry leaves, and traced a finger along the rope cutting into her neck. The touch made her flinch, her breathing getting faster. Marcus laughed low, a sound more cruel than any shout. "This rope is my favorite. It tightens every time you lose strength. So fight, keep fighting. I want to watch you struggle until there's nothing left." Sarah's mind swirled with fear and pain. Her arms burned as every muscle begged to give up. Her throat screamed for air. Tears streamed down her dirty face. But Marcus only leaned back with satisfaction, taking in every twitch, every gasp, every broken plea. Hours dragged on. The moon moved across the sky while Sarah held on to life with what little strength she had left. Her body swung slightly from side to side like a broken doll on display. Marcus never looked away. He sat on a log, sharpening a knife, humming a tuneless song. His eyes stayed locked on her suffering. Sometimes he laughed softly, shaking his head as if watching a show made for his pleasure. Other times he muttered to himself, "She thought she could leave me. She thought she could walk away." But no one leaves Marcus alone. Sarah's lips cracked as she whispered for mercy, though she knew none would come. Marcus rose again, his shadow stretching across her weak form. He placed his hand under her chin, lifting her face toward him, his touch cold and cruel. "You look beautiful like this," he said, his voice dripping with poison. "Fragile. Helpless. Mine." Sarah's heart raced with terror, but somewhere deep inside her burned a small flicker of defiance. She wanted to scream, but her voice broke into silence. Still, Marcus saw it in her eyes, the faint spark that refused to die. And that only fed his obsession more. "Don't give up yet," he said, stepping back, his grin widening. "I want to see the exact moment you surrender. That's the sweetest part." The night dragged into dawn. Her body trembled uncontrollably, every breath sharper than the last. The ropes cut deeper into her skin, leaving marks that would never fade. She had survived the night, but her strength was nearly gone. The question hung heavy in the air: would anyone come for her before Marcus's twisted game reached its end? Sarah's arms were on fire. Her whole body shook like it was ready to give up. She thought this was the end. And then she heard it, the sound of boots crunching against dry leaves. Slow, steady steps coming closer through the trees. For a moment, her heart stopped. Was it Marcus returning to finish his twisted game? Or had someone really come into this cursed forest at the break of dawn? Out of the shadows walked Thomas Reed. Folks around town called him Tom. He was nearly 50, broad-shouldered, weathered by years under the sun, and carried himself with the calm of a man who had seen too much. Tom wasn't a saint, but he had a stubborn streak that made him step in when no one else would. When his eyes landed on Sarah, hanging from that branch, he froze. It hit him like a punch to the chest. This wasn't just cruelty, this was evil. He dropped his rifle to the ground and rushed forward. "Hold on, kid," he muttered, cutting at the ropes with his hunting knife. Sarah gasped as the tension on her neck gave way, her body collapsing into his arms. Her breath came in desperate gulps, and for the first time all night, she felt air fill her lungs without pain. Tom held her steady. Easy now. You're safe. I've got you. His voice was rough, but there was kindness in it, the kind that makes you believe it. But safety never lasts long out here. The crack of a gunshot split the morning air. Bark flew from the tree just inches from Tom's head. Marcus Kane had returned, gun in hand, fury in his eyes. Put her down, Reed, Marcus sneered from the tree line. She belongs to me. Tom didn't waste time with words. He shoved Sarah behind him, drew his revolver, and fired back. The bullet slammed into the dirt by Marcus's boots, forcing him to dive for cover. Run. Tom whispered to Sarah as he pulled her toward his horse tied nearby. She was weak, barely able to stand, but the urgency in his voice drove her forward. Another shot rang out. Tom grunted as the bullet grazed his side, tearing through fabric and skin. Pain burned hot, but he kept moving. He swung Sarah onto the saddle and mounted behind her. The horse reared, then charged through the forest trail as more bullets cracked behind them. Branches whipped past. The morning air filled with smoke and dust. Sarah clung to Tom, tears mixing with sweat, her heart pounding with fear and relief all at once. Behind them, Marcus's voice echoed through the trees. A howl of rage that promised he wouldn't stop, not until she was his again. But Sarah knew something Marcus didn't. She had escaped him once, and this time she would rather die than return to his grasp. What would happen when Marcus's obsession drove him to chase them across the wild frontier? The horse raced down the trail, hooves pounding like thunder in the empty woods. Tom held the reins tight with one hand, the other pressed against his bleeding side. Every bump of the saddle sent fire through his ribs, but he pushed on. Stopping wasn't an option. Sarah clung to him, her face pressed against his chest. Behind them, Marcus's furious shouts echoed through the trees. Gunfire snapped in the distance, but the bullets fell short. Tom leaned close to her ear. Hold steady, kid. We just need to put some miles between us and that bastard. Branches whipped across their clothes. The horse's breath came hot, steam rising in the cool morning air. Finally, the forest grew quiet. Tom pulled the reins and slowed the animal. The trail opened into a clearing. He slid down first, groaning as his boots hit the dirt. Blood soaked the side of his shirt. Still, he managed a crooked grin. Bullet only kissed me. I'll live. Sarah followed, her legs shaking as her feet touched the ground. She looked at him with wide, tear-stained eyes. You shouldn't have risked your life for me. Tom frowned, lowering himself onto a fallen log. That's foolish talk. I couldn't leave you hanging there. No man with a soul could. Her voice fell heavy with shame. You don't understand. Marcus Kane wasn't just a stranger. He was mine once. I loved him, or thought I did. Tom's eyes narrowed. He leaned closer, listening. At first he was gentle, she said. Then I saw the truth, his cruel games, and the way he laughed when I begged him to stop. He fed on suffering. When I ran, I thought I was free. But he hunted me down. And now he wants to finish what he started. Tom spat into the dirt, anger flashing across his weathered face. So that's why he won't quit. He doesn't see you as a person, only something he owns. He shook his head. Men like that don't love. They only destroy. Sarah dropped her gaze, tears streaking her cheeks. I'd rather die than ever go back. Tom placed a steady hand on her shoulder. Then we make sure you never do. Not while I'm breathing. For a moment, the woods were quiet. The two of them sat side by side, battered and bruised, yet bound together by the will to survive. They both knew this wasn't the end. Marcus Kane was still out there, and he wasn't done hunting. The night fell heavy on the Reed Ranch. The lanterns burned low and the wind rattled the old shutters. Sarah sat by the table, her hands trembling as she wrapped a strip of cloth around Tom's wounded side. He tried to act tough, giving her that half-smile of his. Don't fuss, girl. I've had worse from a bar fight in Abilene. But she saw the sweat on his brow, the way his body shook with pain. Tom Reed was hurt bad, and both of them knew it. Then came the sound, a faint crunch of gravel outside. Slow, deliberate steps moving across the yard. Sarah froze. Tom reached for his revolver, his hand unsteady. Stay quiet, he whispered. The door creaked open, and there he was. Marcus Kane stepped inside, his face half hidden in shadow, a grin stretching across it like he owned the room. "Well, now," Marcus drawled, his voice smooth and twisted. "I figured I'd find you here. Did you really think you could steal her away from me, Reed?" Tom raised his revolver, but his injured arm shook. Marcus fired first. The shot slammed into Tom's shoulder, spinning him back against the wall. Sarah screamed as he crumpled to the floor, blood spreading fast. Marcus walked in slow, savoring every step, his pistol aimed steady. "Don't worry, Sarah. I ain't going to kill him quick. Men like him deserve to suffer, just like you did." Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. She looked at Tom, barely conscious, struggling to lift his gun. And then she looked at Marcus, the man she once thought she loved, now a devil in human skin. Something inside her snapped. Her fear burned away, replaced with a fire hotter than anything she'd ever felt. She grabbed the nearest thing she could reach, a heavy iron lamp from the table. With a scream that tore from the depths of her soul, Sarah swung with all her strength. The lamp smashed into Marcus's skull with a sickening crack. His grin disappeared in an instant, his eyes wide with shock as he stumbled back. Sarah didn't stop. Years of pain, nights of terror, every bruise, every scar, every moment of humiliation fueled her. She struck again and again, until Marcus Kane lay still on the floor, blood pooling beneath him. Her chest heaved, tears and sweat dripping down her face. For the first time in years, she was free. Tom's weak voice broke the silence. "Sarah, it's over." But was it really over? Sarah stood over the body of Marcus Kane, her chest heaving, her hands still trembling from the blows she'd struck. The silence of the ranch was heavy, broken only by the faint crackle of the lantern light. For the first time, she felt the weight of his shadow lift from her shoulders. The man who had tormented her, who had stolen her freedom, who had tried to break her spirit, was gone, and she had been the one to end it. She dropped the iron lamp, her fingers raw, and hurried to Tom's side. He was pale, bleeding, but alive. His eyes opened as she knelt beside him, and a tired smile crept across his face. "You saved me, Sarah," he whispered. "No," she said, tears streaming down her face. "We saved each other." As the first light of dawn crept through the cracks of the old ranch house, Sarah helped Tom onto his feet. Together, they stepped outside into the wide-open land that stretched farther than the eye could see. The air was cool, the horizon painted gold by the rising sun. It was a new day not just for them, but for what they had chosen to believe in, that no matter how broken, no matter how much pain someone carried, there was always a chance to fight back, to stand tall again, to reclaim life from the hands of darkness. Sarah looked out across the prairie, her hand resting gently on Tom's arm. She had been a victim. Now she was something more, a survivor. And with Tom by her side, she knew she would never face the world alone again. And maybe that's the lesson we're meant to take, that even in the harshest places, even when evil seems stronger, the human spirit can rise. But what about you? If you were in Sarah's place, would you have found the strength to fight back, or would you have let despair take you? This story reminds us that courage doesn't come easy, and it doesn't come without pain. It comes in the darkest hour when giving up feels easier, and yet, we refuse to let go.